that, I would like to introduce Mike Kaml, his speech titled, I Don't Need No Stinking Notes. I don't need no stinking notes, Mike Kaml.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, most honored guests. Badges. We don't need no badges. How many of you know what movie that first came out of?
We do, we just
What
saw
movie
it.
is that?
About the badgers?
The old one.
It's an old western.
Treasure of the Sierra Madre.
That's it.
Yes, that's the one.
It was repeated, of course, in Blazing Saddles, the Mel Brooks comedy. But today I'm going to talk to you about how to reduce your reliance on notes. Now, notes for speakers are comfort food. It's very nice to be able to take your notes,
Yeah.
to hold them, to caress them, to be able to look down at them. I don't have to look at people. I can read from my notes. In reality, you don't need your notes. But I'm going to teach you a very simple method of weaning yourself away from your notes. These particular sets of notes are my international speech from last year. Version 7,342. Why that many versions? Because the speech changes every time that I give it. It changes based on the group that I'm giving it to. It changes based on the reactions that particular group is giving me. It changes based on how do I feel that night. But Mike, I know what I want to say, and I want to say exactly that thing.
Yeah.
That's right, you do. You want to convey the information, and you figured out the exact perfect way to say it. The exact wording that you want to use. So you will understand that information and go, wow, he's a great speaker. But guess what? You're the only one that knows that. The rest of us are sitting back, listening to the speech and saying, wow, that's amazing. So the first thing that you need to do to reduce your reliance on notes is remember, we don't know what you're going to say. Second reason that people use notes is they're afraid of missing a point. They're afraid they're going to miss a very important thing that I need to make sure that Mike knows about. I need to make sure that I get that point. I need to make sure that I do that point. Guess what? For most of your speeches, we won't know if you missed a point. Unless, of course, you said, the three things I'm going to tell you is A, B, and C. You give them A and C and not B. It might be a little obvious. But that's okay. If you miss a point in your speech, you missed a point in your speech. You learn the next time what you need to do to be able to hit all of your points. The third thing that you can do that will help you to reduce your reliance on notes or eliminate it completely is practice. You've all seen me walk into a meeting, find out we don't have a speaker, and say, I'll do a speech. Do you think that I can just jump up and give you a speech on any subject and have it be a wonderful speech? Well, of course. But that's just me. Of course I can't. How do I do it? I prepare speeches all the time. I see something interesting, I'll create a speech around it. I may never give that particular speech, but I say, if I'm going to talk on the subject of why there normally isn't a 13th floor in a hotel, if you look because it goes 12, 14, they just don't have a 13th floor. 14th floor is actually a 13th floor, but it's not the 13th floor because the 13th floor is between the 12th and the 14th, and not this one. You do a little bit of research, you find out reasonings behind the number 13 being unlucky. You find out what you think might be interesting for somebody to hear about triskaidekaphobia, which is of course fear of the number 13. You might learn how to pronounce triskaidekaphobia because it impresses people when you use really big words. But you don't need to have it perfect. Unless you tell your audience, I made a mistake, 99 times out of 100, they aren't going to know. If you say something and go, it might be obvious to the audience, you may have made a little mistake. If you word something wrong, if you say something wrong, if you forget a point and you just continue on, the audience probably won't know the difference. So the next time that you sign up on the clipboard, which is going around to Louisa and staying there for your next speech, and you start writing out page after page after page of notes, and you want to go up there and have all of those notes, remember, you don't need no stinking notes. Mr. Toastmaster.
Mr. General Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters, welcome guests, and Mike. I enjoyed Mike's speech quite a bit. Also, Mike said something that was interesting to me. He said, if I don't say anything, you won't know. Because you don't have the book in front of you, which says the different points I'm supposed to cover. So when I speak, it'll sound like I know what I'm talking about. But I might miss something. But I'm the only one who'll know. Unless Mike, other than Mike. Probably. And I like that point. Mike had a specific goal, and his goal was to have a specific purpose for his talk. And his talk was to present, articulate a peroration about why notes are necessary when we give a speech. I thought his talk was well organized. I thought he used good material to back up his points. I liked the part when he talked about how we get ideas for talks, how the audience doesn't know if we're missing something. I especially like his gestures. I especially like when Mike walks around the room, looks at people, uses his hands, uses broad gestures, uses his voice, his face comes alive. He's just full of enthusiasm, and that's great. And so that by itself is enough to sell a talk. That by itself can sell a talk, even if it's weak in other points. So I thought Mike did a good job of presenting a specific purpose and backing it up. I'm not sure about his introduction, about why we wore badges or not, but that's okay. My advice, my suggestion to Mike is to perhaps talk about your personal experience. You've been in Toastmasters 16 years. When you started, did you use notes? If you used notes, how much of a crutch were they? When I started, I wrote out everything. Everything was a note. I was afraid to let go of my notes. Maybe talk about that in your experience and how you evolved as a speaker to get away from notes. Maybe when you talk about how the audience won't know if you missed something, talk about a talk you gave where you missed something and the audience didn't know. And that gave you the insight about how you really didn't need notes. So I would suggest more personal stories, personal experience, relating the content to personal experience since you've been in Toastmasters so long and have done so much of this. But it's a good talk. It could be a little bit longer too. There's a lot of good information in there about why we should not use notes, which is important for everybody. Mr. General Evaluator.